I'm going to call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. The recommended resolution that I'm sorry.
Thank you. There are two late items to add under late items under staff reports.
So the recommended resolution is that the following late items be added to the agenda under staff reports. Do I have a motion, please?
I move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. It'd be the Salmon and White River Flood Hazard Study recommendations. They're available here at the village office. It's a very lengthy document. It was 250 pages? 250 pages for your easy reading enjoyment. Okay, so approval of agenda, recommended resolution that the agenda for the regular council meeting for November 2nd, 2021 be approved. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Minutes of previous meeting, the recommended resolution that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on October 19th, 2021 be adopted. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Petition and delegations. We have Darrell Lyons requesting the council consider restoring the question period at the beginning of the meeting. Go ahead, Darrell. It's yours. You can grab the chair there.
Well, good evening, Mayor Baker and the council, Anne and Lisa. Great to see you all. So I would like to take this opportunity to briefly discuss council's decision to move the public input portion of the village council meetings from the beginning of the meeting to the end. The reason for this move was apparently because some difficulties at council meetings existed in the past. It must be noted that the public input at the beginning has not actually been moved, as at the present time it's just simply disappeared. We are left with 15 minutes for public question period at the end of the meeting, which is limited to questions pertaining to issues discussed at the meeting. Now, in the 7+ years that we've been at Sayward, we've attended many meetings and there were never any issues with the 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. Mayor McDonald always seemed to find time to listen to residents' concerns. And if he didn't have the answer at his fingertips, he would just simply say he'd get the answer for us. Now, over the last several meetings, we've heard this word democracy used several times, at the last meeting especially. And if you're intent on making our council democratic, then taking away our ability to at least speak is really not the way to do it. Having lively debates during a council meeting is democracy at its best. And as Mayor Baker pointed out at the last meeting, keeping control of a council meeting is really not all that difficult. Now, in the many discussions, it appears that the village residents have been singled out as the cause of the discourse at council meetings. Now we have a dedicated mayor and council to govern the village. So the question now is, why not include the voices of the residents and taxpayers? Perhaps to look back at what village residents have had to endure over a period of time since Mayor McDonald resigns would be in order now. So it starts with a councillor resigning as a village councillor and then resigning as the acting mayor. Then we have a second acting mayor. He's installed, subsequently forced to resign by the two remaining councillors. Numerous council meetings are cancelled at the last minute with no notice given. 2 occasions, residents are now holding impromptu ad hoc meetings on the road in the front of the Kelsey Center. And now we have another acting mayor who has seemingly little or no control over a council meeting due to his inexperience at those meetings, etc. So one solution that I would like to propose might be to have the 30-minute public input period in which the residents can ask questions move to the end of the meeting. It would be a compromise, certainly an experiment, and if the council did not see problems with that 30 minutes, it could be moved back to the beginning at a later date. I would hope that the council present the pros and cons for moving this established public input period and present their reasons for not moving it back. And I'm sure you're aware of the way it's shown now on an agenda where the public input maximum 30 minutes isn't there any longer. And we do have the public question period, which is limited to issues that were discussed during the meeting, and that's the 15 minutes at the end. And on that note, thank you very much for your attention, and I will sign off.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyons. Appreciate that. Okay. So under correspondence, or shall we discuss CAO? Do we have the option to discuss the suggestion of moving this at the end of the council meeting, moving it to 30 minutes opposed to the 15?
Well, Mayor Baker, the last meeting, it was discussed by council, and of course, there is a provision in the council procedure bylaw that prohibits council from looking at an issue that it's made a decision on within that year, which is another reason why it's not on the agenda as an item. But of course, council can debate anything at any time. It may be something you want to put on the agenda for a future meeting so that council has an opportunity to consider it. It's really up to you.
Okay, what we'll be looking at here is not what we voted on the last meeting, was to have a public question period at the beginning. What was suggested by Mr. Lyons is that we take the public question period at the end of our regular meetings now and move those to 30 minutes, which would be a different thing. So I have, so let's start with Councillor Tinsley. Do you have any issue with moving the maximum 15 minutes to 30?
No, I think it's a reasonable compromise, and what per what Mr. Lyons suggested, I think it's a reasonable compromise. Yes, at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Kirschner. I believe you're muted.
I'm okay now, I think.
You are.
30 minutes is, yeah, I think it's excessive time, but I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Kirschner. I think it is an excessive amount of time. And if we were going to extend it, I would suggest a shorter time period. I'd also like to find out more information about other municipalities and what they offer at the beginning or at the end of the meeting, because I understand that some municipalities do not have any public input. At the meetings, the public is able to contact the councillors or the mayor and speak to them personally. Our phone numbers and our emails are on the village website. They're also in the Sayward newsletter. So I'd like more information on what that would look like for us if we didn't have. Well, we've already passed the bylaw to take it away from the beginning. So I think I'd like more information on whether we should even have the 30-minute public input at the end, since there are other avenues for the public. If they've read the agenda and have some questions or input, they can voice their opinions to the individual counselor.
Okay, I think it's very important that we keep at least the one question period. I think it's very important for the people here in the village to have the ability to come to a meeting and ask questions. I know that, for example, that it's done and people can speak to issues in Campbell River. I'm not 100% sure on the other municipalities, but I don't think it's a good idea to eliminate a question period at all, personally. So what we can do is we could,
I
sorry,
think
go
that's-
ahead.
I think that's something we could discuss at a future meeting if it's on the agenda, put on the agenda for discussion.
Okay, so has everybody agreed that we'll put it on the November 16th agenda?
Yes.
Councillor Kirschner?
Yes, I'm okay with
Okay, and Councillor Poston, so we will put it on the agenda for the 16th. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Under correspondence, we have 3. So the recommended resolution is that A to C be received. And I would like to pull A. So do we have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion? Nope, just opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. So under pulling A, pardon me, is the Vancouver Island Regional Library appointment due December 10th, 2021. So currently, I believe that's Councillor Kirschner, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Councillor Kirschner, did you wish to continue with the library?
Sure. Yes,
Okay, and we need a second for an alternate, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just seconding.
Did you say you wanted to be the alternate?
No.
No, that wasn't you? Okay. Sorry, do we have an alternate? Okay, I will be the alternate. If nobody else would like to take that. Okay, so recommended resolution is that council appoints Councillor Kirschner as trustee and Councillor Baker as alternative, Mayor Baker as alternative to the Vancouver Regional Library Board of Trustees for 2022. Do I have a motion, please?
so
I'll
moved.
move that.
Second. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Under council reports, we have Councillor Kirschner's, pardon me, reconsidering a motion. Councillor Kirschner or CAO? Councillor Kirschner, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm on about there is I didn't realize that when we were voting on the last, actually the time before meeting, that we were voting on the village joining the regional district, and I'm against that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we were not voting against or being part of the regional district. We're voting to send a question out to the public regarding if they wanted more information on becoming a regional district. So Councillor Kirschner has recommended resolution that the council receive Councillor Kirschner's report for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And the next recommended resolution is that the council rescind motion R21-258. Do I have a motion, please?
I just have to check that.
Council, do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And that next recommended resolution is that council rescind motion R21-233. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could you read out the motion?
That council rescind the motion
Yes.
R21-233.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll just have the
What
CEO
was-
allegedly. That was out. Sorry, one moment, please.
Through the chair to Councillor Polson. Motion 258 reads that citizens be asked the following question and that the question accompany the mail-out survey on a proposed new fireworks bylaw. The question was, do citizens support council investing resources to identify the costs and benefits and process to remove the corporate status of the village and turn it into an electoral area where water, sewer, roads, and drainage services are provided by the SRD under the guidance of a single electoral area with taxes paid to the SRD versus the village? Motion 233 reads as follows. That in conjunction with the fireworks household survey, a question be sent out for discussion among the citizens of the village of Sayward to seek citizens' interest in the village becoming an electoral area of the SRD.
Okay, thank you. So we were on a second, I believe, for the council rescind motion R21-233. So I need a second, please. Councillor Kushner? I'm sorry, Councillor Kushner? Are you?
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay. We need a second on your motion, please.
And the motion is,
That council rescind the motion R21-233.
which is? I want to be
What
sure.
you
this
have in
time.
your staff, yes, that there's not going to be the any talk of the SRD, us becoming electoral area being sent out with the fireworks bylaw, as per your report.
No, I'm against becoming
Yes,
part of the,
yeah, we have a motion, so
okay,
we need a second.
second.
Thank you. Discussion? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Councillor Polson. Okay, and it's three out of four, so the motion is carried. Reports of committees. There is none. The mayor report is none. Unfinished business is none. Staff report. We'll start with the late items, if that works for the CAO.
Thank you. The first item, as a late item, relates to the Salmon and White River Flood Hazard Mapping Project and public engagement. Council will remember that the contract was awarded to McElhaney Engineering for the flood study, which is being led in partnership with the SRD and ourselves. You have before you the executive summary of that report, as well as the schedule for public engagement. Basically, this work builds on the assessment work that was done in 2019. There's been no updates of the flood mapping for the Sayward Valley since 1980. And so this is a great increase in information. It also factors in the bathymetric measures of the river climate change, and sea level rise. One of the things we noted during the course of doing this work is that we can expect to receive as much as 20% more rainfall due to climate change over the next period of time. And this affects flooding impacts in the valley particularly. Primarily, the village improvements are largely unaffected, and the report discusses that. The big impact will be the closure of the road, which will be closed due to seasonal flooding in those times when the road does flood. There's also the risk of contaminants from largely unregulated land uses in the valley that could introduce pollutants into the river system, which is something that could impact the village. Primarily, the recommendations contained in the report look at infrastructure improvements to provide for the road being kept open. The June 22nd public presentation attracted very little public attention, and that suggests that there's a certain level of awareness and acceptance to the risk of flooding with residents. However, I think it's useful for residents to look at the mapping and to take some interest in the new report. We in the village have a couple of things to do in response to this. One would be to update the floodplain bylaw, which provides for a new flood construction level so that new construction in those areas that are subject to flooding are built above that water level. And there's some options for the village to work with the valley to look at some of the policies to do the 4 things that are basically done in flooding, which is either accommodate the flooding, retreat from the flooding, avoid the flooding, and adapt to flooding. So I think the village has done a bit of all of that, and so has the valley. Primarily, the report looks at 5 options, which range from 2.3 million to 1.7 million, a range of upgrades to the highway to raise Highway 19 in various locations in order to provide for the road to remain open during any seasonal flooding.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Finally, there are 2 public engagement processes set up for the future. One is for September 18th at the Kelsey Center, 1 till 4 for drop-in map viewing, and 5:30 till 7 for a presentation by the planning consultants and some discussion. And then there'll be a similar arrangement for the folks in the valley to go to the Heritage Hall to have a similar opportunity to review the maps in the afternoon and then have a public presentation for about 45 minutes in the evening. And that is the essence of that report.
Thank you, CAO. Did you want to hit on the second late item on the Kelsey Center?
Second staff report is basically a CAO update of various things. One is the reopening of the Kelsey Center, which council will have the handout that's planned by the manager. It provides for the back to school program or after school program for children, some things for seniors, a full PD day on November 25th. And there is still work being done to obtain the services of a lifeguard, and we expect that to be resolved fairly soon. The second item on this update relates to the Newcastle Dam. You'll maybe remember the significant rain event that was experienced in September. It caused some sediment transfer at the dam, which caused a bit of a shutdown for a few days, and it delayed the final construction of or not so much the construction, the weir is constructed, but the removal of the dam. And this has led to some problems with what they call cement dust, pouring into some of the channel downstream, which has potential to cause some damage to fish. So this will be, the site is set aside for the winter. It's set up fine and there's no risk of loss of water or any further damage. However, there'll be a bit more work to pick up the project in the spring, well, the summer actually, during that short fish window, which is July 15th to September 15th. Finally, there's a short upgrade or update on the work with the Western Forest Products regarding the noise bylaw amendment. You'll recall that staff had directed, or council had directed staff to work with the company to try and come up with some kind of an agreement over how to provide for their early morning starts during the hot weather. We've agreed on some elements of that there be written notice provided to the village, that there be written notice of the planned start times, and that there be written notice to obtain council permission if there was any planned night shifts, and that Western Forest provide some commensurate benefit to the community to compensate for the early morning starts, which we haven't resolved. That seems to be a real problem for the company because of their scheduling and all of the various contractors, et cetera, that are part of that industry, which is basically a 7-day industry during the summer months. And we've also asked that there be some recognition of a noise and a dust abatement plan on an annual basis, perhaps by April 1st. That will provide for some good information for everybody in the community to know what the plans are and how the dust and noise will be managed. We have a little bit of work to do to resolve what the concession might be from Western Forest Products to provide for those early morning starts, some give back to the community. So we're still working through that one. And that's the essence of that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Polson.
Yes, to the CAO, I did note on on your report about the Kelsey Center reopening that there was no swimming in the schedule. So I just wanted to see if there is an expected date when swimming will resume.
Yes, unfortunately, lifeguards are the short card here. It's very difficult to get lifeguards. We had a tentative arrangement for somebody for the weekends, but that hasn't been finalized. So that's why it's not on the schedule. But that is something that the manager is working on. The manager is actually going to provide a quarterly update to council, hopefully at the next meeting or the December 7th meeting. And hopefully by then there'll be some progress to report on the lifeguard as well.
Okay, that would be great. And then I have another question about the flood report. And you said something about a public meeting being held on September 18th and then another one being held out at the Heritage Hall. Has the one out at the Heritage Hall been held yet?
Through the chair to Councillor Polson. No, this is a draft schedule that's being prepared now, and I think the area director is trying to formalize the arrangements to access the Hellaby Hall, the Heritage Hall, so that they can host the meeting there, which is planned for November 22nd.
Okay, so then would ours, like September 18th has already happened?
Sorry, that should say November 18th.
Okay.
That's a typo. Sorry about that.
Good.
Yeah, the previous meeting was held in June or actually July. And it'll be very similar to that meeting where there'll be the presentation by the consultants. It'll be similar to the OCP meeting as well, where the maps will be on the wall and there'll be some short presentation to the community in the evening.
Okay, thank you.
In regards to WFP, we made concessions and they started at 4:30 in the morning without using any ground crew until 7, which was workable for most of the residents that had some of the noise issue. But one of the things that I believe needs to be in the agreement that there is no overnights. Overnights are extremely disruptive to everybody's sleep. And when we do a noise bylaw, we will set times, of course, from like 7 to 11 or 7 to 10 in the bylaw. But I don't believe we should have, they should be working overnights, in my opinion. And I think that's something that we need to negotiate with them. And we need to tell them straight up that there should not be overnights available, in my opinion. Hey, so that was our late items. And so under B is the shared fire service. Referred from the 19th, 2021 regular council meeting. Recommended resolution is that the shared fire service staff report to be received for information and discussion. So to have a motion, please.
I'll move.
Second. You're muted, Councillor Kirschner.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Now, when we're talking, I've had a discussion with the area director as well as the CAO from the SRD. And some of the concerns that I had in favoring option C was normally when the SRD was looking at, for example, doing that service for us and going under their umbrella, we would lose all our assets, like Hall 1, for example, which is something that I don't believe as a village, we don't have a lot of assets and we shouldn't be giving that up. So in discussions with Director Wally and with Dave Leach, CAO, they said that we can, with council approval, do a lease of our Hall 1 to the SRD fire service, which I think is a great option because we still retain the building and we get to lease it to the fire department. Also, as time goes on and the survey continues, or not survey, pardon me, but the study, we would then sit down and go negotiate in terms of what the split would be. Like right now, we're at 60-40 on quite a bit, and then there's 50-50 on some of the capital projects. So that is still on the table. However, what would happen in the future after the report is done and we agree to some of those terms on there and we sign off, Gerald Wally, the area director A, and the mayor of the village would sit down, have a discussion, agree in principle on what's going to happen in the future on administrative things to do with the fire department. And then the mayor would have to bring it back to council for approval before it would be implemented with the SRD. So the area director and the mayor would sit down and go through it. And as I said, then it would be brought to council for either approval or disapproval at that point. So those are the two big sticking points. Councillor Polson, you have your hand up?
Yes, I thought we just passed a resolution to carry on meeting with the SRD and trying to work out an option that is suitable to both of us, both the SRD and the village. Basically leaving the fire service set up as it is now, but having more input from the regional director.
The regional director has made it very clear, if we do not go to option C, he will go independently and make his own fire service and separate from the village. So he wants option C with the fact that we would retain the hall under a lease and we still need to negotiate the percentages. So the SRD would have, they would staff, for example, the fire chief and so on and so forth. And any big capital expenses would have to go through the SRD board, not just the area director and the mayor, but through the whole board. Does that answer your question, Councillor Polson?
Well, I feel like we're being held, we're giving an option that you agree, or I'm going to do this. And I'd like more information from the residents of the valley. And I'd also like more information and feedback from the firemen that are involved, how they feel about it. I just don't like being told that if we don't do this, then this will happen.
What we could do is we could see in the future meeting, for example, on the 16th, if there is time, whether or not Dave Leach could make a presentation to mayor and council and discuss what they're talking about. But Director Wally has made it very clear that what he's looking for is the SRD to take over and for him to have a 50-50 vote, which he believes in the past he's had no input on how the fire department has been run. So he's made it very clear that he will, in fact, go out on his own. And I mean, I disagree with the fact that was brought up at the last meeting that he holds all the cards. I mean, the volunteers at that point would make a decision on where they're going to work, if not for both. We'd have to work out the division of assets if he decided to go out by himself. And we would have to form our own village fire department. But that's where it's at right now. Now, if you like, Councillor Paulson, we can request that Dave Leach does a short presentation at a council meeting so we can get more information. Or if you like, we can also have Gerald Wally, the director, join Dave Leach and say exactly what he's looking for to mayor and council. Is that acceptable?
Yes, that is acceptable because part of the whole problem with this shared fire service is that the director has refused to attend any budget meetings or give any input. He's had lots of opportunities and been invited and doesn't show up. So, you know, I just don't feel comfortable about this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor.
Councillor sorry, Councillor Tinsley. Councillor Paulson?
Yes,
you
I
want to
just
finish?
wanted to say that I do agree to, it would be a good idea for Dave Leach and Gerald Wally to come to a future meeting and explain what they're after. I think we also need to consider the what's in the floodplain and their fire hall is, if there is a flood, it will be completely useless. So because they won't be able to get to it. So, and the village fire won't be able to get out on that road. So I think it's a whole lot more than just, I'm going to go to my own fire department. If, you know, if I can't get section C.
Thank you, Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree that would be great that there's that further presentation. I do think it's important that we work together to create a unified system, 50-50 or not, given the disparities around needs for fire services. I think that's important, but I would agree with the need for another presentation. And I would suggest that we represent that we are very interested in a shared service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kirschner.
I agree with Councillor Tinsley, and a shared service, not something jammed down our throat. Do this or I'll do that. I don't like that.
Okay, thank you. So we will make a request for Director Wally and for the CAO of the SRD, Dave Leach, to make a presentation to council. We'll check what dates are available for them and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna okay. So we'll make a recommended resolution that staff invite CAO Dave Leach from the Strathcona Regional District and Area A Director Gerald Wally to do a presentation to mayor and council at the earliest convenience. Do I have a motion, please?
I move that.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? You have your hand up, Councillor Kirschner? No? Okay. Sorry, you're muted as well. That may have been a good thing that you were muted at that point, but that's. Okay, so opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, so we'll go to C, which is making the administrative building safe and accessible to citizens. Recommended resolution is that making the administrative building safe and accessible to citizens. Staff report to be received for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Thank you. Second? I think Councillor Kirschner mouthed the word
I'll
second.
that. I'll second.
There we go. Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Next is that the staff be or directed to obtain the $5,500 grant from MIABC to use the funds along with 5845.99 from the COVID Relief Fund to procure key fobs for the upgrade alarm system described in this report attached. Quote, for the sum of $11,345.99. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Further that the staff be directed to include an additional $12,161.17 in the 2022-2026 financial plan to install and upgrade camera security system. Do I have a motion, please?
Move that.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I have a question.
Councillor Paulson?
I just want to know whether the cameras to be installed will be motion sensors or will they be continuous? Like, will they take a picture of the movement at the time that it happens, or will they be running continually?
We believe that they are continuous. So we'll double check on that and we'll have to get back.
Thank you.
You. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. And finally, that the staff return to council with a quote to procure improvement meeting furniture for council that can provide an effective and engaged meeting where citizens can feel comfortable and welcome. Do I have a motion, please? Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Oh, sorry. Who's
I-
Councillor Chinsley? Oh, sorry, Councillor
Nope.
Paulson, go ahead.
I have a concern about the citizen seating, and I don't know what the expense would be or how many chairs it would involve that we would be purchasing or looking at purchasing, but my feeling is that the chairs that are provided for the audience is they're used for they are short-term chairs, and usually the meeting is short-term. The bulk of the chairs there in the Kelsey Center that are used for dinners or performances or anything seem adequate. So I'm not quite sure that we need to use the COVID money for that expense. I would rather see that for a few people to be able to sit more comfortably, I would rather see the money being used for something that's going to benefit the whole community, like a ramp up to the gazebo, so that people that have mobility issues can access that area. Or even having the administrative offices renovated so that they are more serviceable and comfortable and eye appealing to the public, and you know, more inviting than providing a few chairs or some chairs at a meeting. I'd rather see something like that project being addressed.
Well, thank you, Councillor Tinsley.
My comments were the same. I'm sort of unclear about exactly what we're talking about in terms of the furniture. I don't think it's unreasonable to obtain a quote and then for council to look at that relative to the other considerations that Councillor Paulson has brought in. But I think the clarity would come in the quote probably. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. One of the things I understand what you're saying about the chairs for the public, but one of the things, we get the quote, we could look at it from there. But in terms of the ramp, that wouldn't be covered. We wouldn't be able to justify that to the government in terms of the COVID money to build the ramp. But one of the other things is we have to change how mayor and council sits, because I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is no way during this whole pandemic that we would be able to social distance during our meetings with this table and the way this is set up. I mean, right now, I mean, even the CAO is closer than she should be, and there's only 2 of us at the table. So that's something that I think is going to be important to change. Now, also in terms of the administrative offices, to get rid of the carpet, for example, and put in flooring, which would be something that wouldn't hold any bacteria and so on and so forth, could be something that would be a good idea for in there, and making that workspace safe. Also, I think what's important to look at is also some kind of air exchange unit needs to be put in there, because as we know, this virus is also airborne. So an air exchange unit also for heat, for cold, what have you, for air, but to keep that, our staff safer, I think is something we could justify with that as well. Does anybody agree or disagree with that?
I agree with the office renovations to make it safer and healthier for the staff that are working in there. The heat fluctuations in the temperatures in there in the summertime are unbearable, and I don't know if it's cold in the winter, but you know, I think that we also need to present a public face for the village of Sayward to look like we're not in the 60s. We're you know, having the place renovated so that it's pleasing to look at and welcoming when people come into it. I've been in several other municipality offices, and you know, they're beautiful, and it makes the staff feel happier to work in an environment like that. And I would certainly like to see the renovations go ahead in the front office.
I agree. It's for me, it's not so much the aesthetics as it is the safe. So when you are making the building safe or their area safe, of course, it would be upgraded and dated, you know, to modern time, opposed to, as you say, in the 60s. So that would be something that would work its way out by doing and making it a safe environment for the staff, and putting in, as I said, like a heat pump or the air exchanger, the new flooring and so on and so forth, to make it a safe environment for the staff. Does anybody else have a comment?
I agree with that.
So thank you. Councillor Tinsley?
Just saying the same. It's about the safety of the staff and how can I describe it? Also the citizens that come to the meeting. So I think we're talking a little bit about two different things, but we all agree on the fact that the safety is the most important thing. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to direct the staff to do a quote on what it would take in terms of what we're talking about changing this table to make it safe, and also for our staff to be safe during the meeting and have that social distance with the audience as well. And for definitely for mayor and council to be able to, and the CAO, to maintain that social distancing. So the staff would return to council with a quote to procure improvements, meeting furniture for council provide effective, engaged meetings where citizens can feel comfortable and welcome. Sorry, CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I just wanted to add a little piece. We did have one estimate to improve the air quality in the building. Unfortunately, the Public Works manager and I miscommunicated. I miscommunicated with the Public Works officer because our procurement policy requires at least 3 written quotes. And I wasn't understanding that the individual who gave the one quote we have would have to come out and spend the day touring around our building to see what the facilities were. I had imagined that there would be a couple of calls. We'd have a bit of an order of magnitude group of options. So all of that to say is that we will have to post a bid request for quotes on our website in order to obtain 3 bids to be able to provide you with the general cost estimates for improving the air. We have one now, but as I say, it doesn't comply with our policy. And unfortunately, I expected we would just get an order of magnitude. I didn't know we were going to get a full-on exploration of the building and the building needs. So in fairness, we need to do that with 2 other firms and then bring that bid back to you. So we have a bit of an idea of what the cost will be. I think from going from memory, I think the air exchanged for the downstairs area was something like 16,000 or something between 9 and 16. It's about 39,000 to air condition the gym. And there are some other provisions in there for condensation in the file room that were something like 10 or 12,000. So there were 3 different options for 3 different areas to address 3 sort of different problems. And we'll bring that to you in a subsequent meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, CAO. Does anybody have any questions? No?
No.
So we have a motion, please.
Also move.
Second,
Second.
discussion. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Bylaws, ticketing bylaw 422 from 2021, recommended resolution that the ticketing bylaw 422 2021 be given 4th and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. To the public question period, which reads the maximum 15 minutes. For the purpose of the public question period is to enable citizens to ask questions at the council meeting issues that are important to the citizens asking the questions. Speakers are asked to limit their questions to 1, and if time permits, everyone would have an opportunity to ask a second question. Speakers may ask a second question. There it is. Citizens will be asked to state their name and address. We don't have anyone in the audience today. And do we have any email questions? No. Okay, in camera, none. Adjournment. I'm sorry, this meeting has been a little too short. It's only 5 to 8. We could extend it by another half hour or so if you guys want to go in. No? Okay. So recommended resolution that the regular council meeting for November 2nd, 2021 be adjourned. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Meeting is over. Thank you very much, everybody. You have a wonderful week.
You too.